You always said I was a better person than I knew I was.
Hey, folks, let's spend some time with friends up north. Pat Kreitlow of Up North News is on Lake Wissota. Sarah Yakub of the Minocqua Brewing Company Super PAC is on the Mississippi River. And up on Lake Minocqua is Kirk Bangstead of the Minocqua Brewing Company. Wherever you are, welcome. You're up north.
Won't you let me die?
Hello, and welcome to the Up North Podcast. I'm Kirk Bangstead, along with Pat Kreitlow and Sarah Yakub.
Coming up on our program this week, the deeper meaning of Christmas carols. It's not that they have some kind of hidden message, it's that we sing the songs so automatically that maybe we've lost sight of the origins of our favorite holiday tunes and what they call on us to do. Here's a hint, it's not all about shopping, it's about how we treat our neighbors, all of our neighbors.
All of the neighbors. Okay. Kirk, I am glad you suggested this topic because, look, there are a lot of fun songs about Christmas time, and that's good. There's Sleigh Ride, Jingle Bells, Rudolph for the kids. There's songs about the weather. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. There are the more grown-up songs, songs of love, like All I Want for Christmas Is You, songs of heartache, like Please Come Home for Christmas, songs you'd consider mischievous or lecherous, like Baby It's Cold Outside. And of course, that song about a forgettable one-night stand a year ago, Last Christmas. And there's songs of crass materialism, like Santa Baby. I mean, we get the whole range here. And there's songs that make no sense in this day and age because have either one of you roasted chestnuts over an open fire? Has anybody? Does anybody? Look, they're all fine. They're fine songs, but we're going to spend this hour getting back to basics, getting back to the reason for the season and the lessons that it seems far too many Americans need to relearn. They need to relearn that it's not all about you. So we're going to have less Kris Kringle and more Kris Kramer. And if you don't know who Kris Kramer is, I don't either, but Kirk has our guest. And so he's going to tell us about our guest, Kris Kramer, this hour.
Pat, it's almost like you've been in the news before in a past life because that segue was pretty unbelievable.
I've done this once or twice. Yes.
So Kris Kramer. So first of all, I called up my pastor, Erin Kirby, in Minocqua, who was at the Episcopal Church in Minocqua, and she had like 4 services going on this week. It's probably not the best time to get a pastor to be a guest on a show.
Probably, yeah.
Right before Christmas. But she had a really great friend of hers named Kris Kramer, who is a chaplain at Atrium Health, a health system. And so he's not doing the huge heavy lifting for Christmas. And this guy, holy cow, he is a super smart dude. He's educated at Duke University Divinity School and Oxford University in Great Britain. And so what we're going to do after we go to the break is we're going to listen to 5 beautiful, beautiful Christmas songs and really get into their lyrics. And then Kris is going to help us understand that some of the original Christmas classics aren't merely about celebrating the birth of Christ. They're reminding us to do more than just sit in the pews and mouth the words. These are call to actions that can maybe make this crazy world a little less crazy if more people would live out the faith they claim to have.
You know, and I really like that we're doing this, and we don't want folks forgetting that it's not like the news is taking a break this week or ever. Mike Gableman and Robin Voss are still wasting thousands upon thousands of our taxpayer dollars on a phony investigation that is just as sloppy as it is cynical. We've got Scott Walker coming out from under his rock to promote a tax plan that hikes sales tax on the working community so that millionaires won't have to pay state income taxes anymore, because that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, COVID is on the march again, all because the Trump cult wants to keep pretending to be tough guys, even as 800,000 Americans have died. This is all still going on and we're still following it, but we need a step back from time to time. And this is our time to do that by getting back in touch with what makes this Christmas season meaningful to all of us.
So we're really looking forward to that this hour. We hope you will too. So when we come back, Pastor Kris Kramer will join us here up north.
Welcome back to the Up North podcast. I'm Sarah Yakub along with Kirk Bangstead and Pat Kreitlow. If you missed it at the top of our show, our guest is Father Kris Kramer, a chaplain with Atrium Health.
Now, Kris was educated at Duke University Divinity School and at Oxford University in Great Britain. His wife, Caroline, is an Episcopal Church rector. She's from England. They met in Scotland while studying together at Oxford. They have 4 adult children. He's done mission work in Africa and Central America. He's made pilgrimages to the Holy Land. And as a hospital chaplain, has seen up close what the COVID pandemic is doing to people's health and to people's spirits. And Father Kris, it's very much a pleasure to have you here with us during this holiday season, and Kirk wants to set up what we're going to discuss here during the segment.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you here, Father Kris. And the reason I got Father Kris on the show is because, I've been doing, Pat and Sarah and I have been doing this podcast for a while now, but my past, before I became a political activist and even a brew pub owner, was I went to school for music, and I was a classical singer, and my family is very musically oriented. And so to me, Christmas means beautiful music. And so Pat's like, Kirk, we got to do something about Christmas. And I'm like, that means music to me. And so I started listening to all these Christmas music, and it dawned on me that so many of these songs are about helping the poor, about helping a stranger. And it's like, wow, like this is fitting right into our podcast because we're a progressive.
Imagine the message of the gospel showing up at Christmas.
So I was like,
how ironic.
Of course, we have to do a show about getting into these songs and showing that there's so many people on the right who claim Christmas and say that there's a war on Christmas, when to me it's the opposite. To me, progressives and folks who care about others and their neighbors, and that's what the progressive message is we're the really ones walking the walk in this thing, and those guys are talking the talk, but it's shallow. So welcome, Father Kris, and please tell me your kind of thoughts about this overall. What do you do in the show, and then we'll dive right into the songs after that.
I think it's great. I think the more we can explore art in connection with religious festivals, the better our understanding of those festivals will be. And I think there's such diversity around how poets through the years and musicians have created beautiful music. But at the end of the day, they're all trying to make sense of a story that many would argue changes the world even still today. So for us to kind of dive in behind the words and find out whether there's any relevance to what's going on today, I think it's actually kind of cool. I'm looking forward to listening and maybe making some sense of a few things. But thanks for inviting me. It's really cool to be in Wisconsin tonight.
You are so welcome. We're so happy to have you. This really warms my heart to be doing this. So, okay, so our producer is Evan, and we put a load of work on him today. So the first song we're gonna do is "O Come, Emmanuel," and we're gonna listen to the Robert Shaw Chorale out of at the Atlanta Symphony Chorus, which is basically the bedrock, kind of they're the staple of great Christmas choral music, that Robert Shaw Chorale from about 30 years ago. So Evan, take it away, my friend. All right, Father, tell us what you know about "O Come, Emmanuel," that beautiful piece of music.
It's a beautiful song. the the writer of the song is a guy named John Mason Neal. He was the son of two evangelical Christians. His father was a priest, Cornelius, and his mother's name Susanna, not to be confused with Susanna Wesley. But Neal was a Cambridge guy, but a member of the Oxford movement, which in the late 19th century was all about the return to more high church worship. So the majesty and mystery of worship was very important to his theology. So much so that a lot of people don't know this, but John Neal was actually inhibited from serving in the church for 15 years by his bishop. He got in trouble. And I'm guessing that's because he probably liked to swing incense and do more formal things. But he established a convent. His sister established the Order of the Holy Cross. So he's very much into the Anglo-Catholic side of the church's life. And he was from Sussex, south of London, kind of southeast. And he had lung cancer, et cetera, et cetera. So my guess is some of his words were about trying to break through the story of the gospel, breaking through the misery and the mire of the ordinary life to help people see and escape to God with us. And it's kind of exciting that there's this message that breaks us through the ordinary and helps us to touch the extraordinariness of God. And it's given to us by this ordinary guy, John Mason Neal.
Okay, so what I got from this song was and you were going to mention the 7th verse. It talked a lot. To me, it's immigration. It's "Oh, come, thou key of David, come, open wide our heavenly home, make safe the way that leads. Make safe, open your home." What's the one that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, yeah, there's several different translations, different versions of the hymn, and I found one from the English hymnal, which I'm guessing is probably closer to the original. And it was, "O come, O King of Nations," talking about Jesus in a land that had a king at the time. "Bind in one the hearts of all mankind, bid all our sad divisions cease, and be yourself our King of Peace." So it's basically taking all the structures of society and the class system and all these things and crashing them down around the kingship of Jesus Christ. So classism, separation, all of these divisions, he would say, let's make them all go away so that we all stand equally at the foot of Christ. And that's kind of a radical message at a time when, people like their place in society.
Well, you couldn't have hit it more on the head here. I mean, just the things you said in just the past few seconds: bind as one our hearts, cease our divisions, and
right.
Stand equally. Basically, the things that, and I don't mean to be cavalier about this, but you've just described what the entire Fox News crowd would call socialism, which the rest of us would describe as the common good and looking out for one another.
Sure.
These are not too, again, we'll have time with all these various songs, but the point I'm getting from this is you don't have to give up who you are as an individual to still look out for the common good, to still stand equally with one another in terms of compassion, in terms of binding our hearts together, in terms of looking out for one another. You can do all that without losing sight of who you are as a person.
I think the magic is that in our individuality, we discover our relationship. And it's through discovering who you really are that you discover who we are.
Okay. I love this. We're going to move on to the next one, which is "Away in a Manger." I mean, it's obvious what this one's going to be all about, but Evan, take it away, and then we'll talk about it.
Beautiful.
All right, Father. What do we have to think about this one?
It's such a beautiful piece of music. Of course, there are two traditions about which music goes with the words. If you were in the UK, you would get a different piece of music. There's sort of the classical one that you hear in America, and then there's a different kind of music. They're both in a wonderful way pointing to that innocence of the Christ child. You get this sense of a vulnerableness of the story of Christianity. And so my mind immediately takes me to this little refugee family that didn't have a place to stay. And some kind guy happens to have a little stable out back, and he lets them go sleep with the animals. And, I've been to Bethlehem, and so my mind, listening to the music, I'm perplexed by the fact that in reality, there's a huge wall there now on the west bank of Jerusalem. And so just outside that wall is Bethlehem. And so the division of this huge wall keeping people apart is right there on the doorstep of the very place where Jesus crashed into the world. And so I love the song, but it's just a constant reminder of that, as a baby is innocent and has to be cared for by responsible adults, we are the caretakers of the message of Christianity. And it's a message of looking after the vulnerable, looking after the innocent, not being vitriolic and arrogant and lording over other people. It's a really radical message, honestly.
Well, and I one of the things I love about Christmas is that it really brings us back to the message of our faith. And it feels like we're being tugged as a society away from this idea of protecting the innocent baby, whether it's the baby Jesus, or we know Christ tells us that how you treat the least among us is how you treat him. So, this seems like a 1 + 1 = 2, very simple, but at the same time, we're in a society where we're all watching how we treat people at the southern border. We're all watching how, we turn our backs on people in our own communities. We had refugees come out, the opportunity to have them come out to Hudson, and the uproar of, oh no, they can't come here. And,
right.
It's fear driven, it's sad. But, you sort of hope that in singing these songs that those words really sit on people's hearts and kind of drive them away from that fear that I feel like is driving so much these days.
I mean, the idea of this song, a lot of people argue it's questionable whether this is true, that Martin Luther, the great reformer of the church in the 16th century, that this was a poem that was a cradle poem that a lot of German mothers would sing to their children. And then it was later changed and twisted a little bit and it made into what we now know as this hymn. I think it's kind of interesting that it's lasted all this time, but every time I hear it, I think of imagining someone standing in a tornado scene with all this, the wrecked houses from last week, and someone is standing there holding a child that they found in the rubble, and they're holding this baby. And you think to yourself, who in their right mind would think for 1 second to politicize that image and to try and capitalize on this image of this vulnerable, sweet child that was innocent?
Or turn them away.
Instead of saying, we need to respond, we need to act, we need to have a heart. And so that's what bugs me today. I see everything being politicized. And instead of that message melting our hearts, instead of hardening us, it should melt us.
It should, because it would help us understand, the intrinsic value of every child that is born. And when we talk about that and we look at what is the modern day manifestation of that, and I think of the dreamers that the DACA policy deals with. These are people who were babies when their parents, crawled over barbed wire, if you will, and risked all manner of things to give their children a better life. Now those children are working hard and are looking to do their best, and how do we treat them? So we are going to talk more about this with Father Kris Kramer on the other side of this break, and talk more about the holiday tunes of the seasons and the message it should bring to us. We'll be back. You're Up North.
me die.
Mary, did you know that your baby boy would one day walk on water? Mary, did you know that your baby boy would save our sons and daughters? Did you know that your baby boy has come to make you new? This child that you delivered will soon deliver you.
Mary, did you know?
Welcome back to the cabin, and just pentatonics speak to Christmas. I'm Sarah Yakub, along with Kirk Bangstad and Pat Krylo, and we've got Father Kris Kramer with us tonight.
He's a chaplain at Atrium Health, and our theme tonight, Songs of the Season, and what an event that took place more than 2,000 years ago can still tell us now through the music of hymns, songs, poems that were written all those years ago, because there are themes that continue to run through the human existence, not just love, not just babies, but war and peace and immigration and standing together instead of standing apart from one another. Kirk, this was something that you thought would be a great idea for the season. So before we return to Father Kris, I thought, so far so good. You think you're getting something out of this, or have you learned anything yet? Or
Yeah, I mean, I love it. This just warms my heart. I don't do enough of this anymore, and with COVID, it's not like I'll be going to a bunch of church over the next few days. So this is kind of my church, I think. So I love it.
Cool.
So, all right. So the next song, before I start crying, the next song is from the group called Chanticleer, which I saw with my dad when I was in the 8th grade at a choral director conference, and it's an all-male a cappella group out of San Francisco. That is one of the best. What they do is better than anybody else that's in the world. So this song is "It Came Upon a Midnight Clear." I'll say it again. It came upon a midnight clear. It's the second verse, and Evan, take it away.
Yet with the woes of sin and strife, the world has suffered long beneath the angels' strain have rolled 2,000 years of wrong, and man at war with man hears not the love song which they bring. Oh, hush the noise, ye men of strife, and hear the angels sing.
let's do those words again. The music was beautiful, Kirk, but I mean, the words are right here in front of me. They need to be shared again, of that particular verse. Yet the woes of sin and strife the world had suffered long. Beneath the angel strain have rolled 2,000 years of wrong. And man at war with man hears not the love song which they bring. Oh, hush the noise, ye men of strife, and hear the angels sing. I don't know the year that this came from, but the themes, Father Kris, seem awfully clear.
It's amazing. So it's around 1850. They think that the guy's name was Edmund Sears, and he wrote this. He was a pastor, and I guess in 1850, I think there was probably all sorts of revolution going on in Europe, and I think what Spanish-American War was just before that. So The thing I read a little bit about Sears, and I found it interesting that he was struggling with melancholy, so probably depression, and he was a part-time cleric in Massachusetts at the time that he wrote this. And so in a way, he poetically states a sort of hopefulness for a better world, a world that's more peaceful, that a world that actually embraces the message of Christmas, that Christ can come in and bring peace to the whole world. And it's an amazing, and again, radical song that calls people together, and it doesn't divide people. And who would have thought that a guy struggling with depression in his little Massachusetts rectory would compose such a beautiful song that's sung by so many around the world?
Okay, so I just was thinking, this is all about peace. It's all about togetherness. We've seen some Christmas cards online from some of our Republican congressmen. I think it's Congressman Babert, and there's a guy too from Montana that their whole family had AK-47s
with the guns,
with their guns in front of the Christmas tree.
In front of a Christmas tree.
Oh,
I
don't get that.
Does that have anything to do with "It Came Upon a Midnight Clear"?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know any hymns or carols for Christmas that tell you to get your bunker ready in the backyard and store up your arms. It's supposed to be about getting ready for peace and to be the embodiment of the peace you wish to see in the world. So anybody that's kind of advocating this anti-peace rhetoric strikes me to being going directly against the message of Christmas, which is about reaching out to your neighbor and finding out who your neighbor actually is, not showing up at your neighbor's door with a gun saying, don't tread on me. You tread on me, this is what you're going to get. That's not a message of Christmas. That's so foreign. And yet I see it in a lot of places. I see that autonomous kind of individuality, and it manifests itself in the theology of some of the churches we see in the country. You go to some parts of the country, these big churches, and their message is all about your individual relationship with Jesus. And so everything is about me and God, me and God, me and God, and it has nothing to do with me and my neighbor. And I think the transformation of Christmas is when all of a sudden the message of Christmas transforms not just the relationship between the divine and humanity, but that relationship being transformed impacts everybody around you. So suddenly your neighbor becomes visible to you because God is dwelling within you. And to me, that's the message of Christmas. That's not about guns and threats and being strong. That makes no sense to me.
Okay. Oh my God, I love it. We're going to move to the next song because we got two more and I want to hit them both. This next one is an actual spiritual,
good.
They call it a Negro spiritual, African-American spiritual. It's the linguistics change over the years, but you're the one who suggested this one. I had Chanticleer singing this one again, but this is actually an artist that was on the YouTube that we were listening to. So Evan, take it away. This is a spiritual called Rise Up, Shepherd, and Follow.
There's a star in the east on Christmas morn. Rise up, shepherd, and follow. It will lead to the place where the babe is born. Rise up, shepherd, and follow. Leave your flocks and leave your lamb. Rise up, shepherd, and follow. Leave your sheep and leave your ram. Rise up, shepherd, and follow. Follow, follow. Rise up, shepherd, and follow. Follow the star of Bethlehem. Rise up, shepherd, and follow. If you take me.
All right. Thanks, Evan. Appreciate
so
it,
good.
man.
Oh, that's so good. It's wonderful. And what's great is you hear it, and on the surface, you hear the, rise up shepherds referring to the shepherds in the fields, tending their sheep. They see the star and they're called to rise up and go find the babe wrapped in a manger. And but actually, this was actually quite a subversive spiritual that, you know, you can imagine on the plantations, the slave owners would have the slaves come to the house for Christmas, and they would sing this song, you know, also like Ride On King Jesus and some of the other spirituals that you might have known. But this one is actually kind of sneaky, because in telling the message of the shepherds to go find Jesus, they're also telling the slaves to rise up and find their freedom. It's a wonderful message to say, you know what, you can break free from anything that holds you captive, and you can find your liberation. And so I just think it's a fantastic song. It's a shame that it took until like the 1980s before any of these spirituals started showing up in mainstream church hymnals like this one. But I'm glad you included it.
All right, so that was, we added that one, but we only have time for one more, and this is my favorite one. It's "Oh Holy Night." The guy who sings it is from like the 80s. Nobody even knows this guy, but it blew me away, and I posted about it earlier on Facebook. I love it. This makes everyone cry. Evan, and the third verse is perfect for what we're doing, but Evan, play away, my friend.
He taught us to love one another. His law is love, and his gospel is peace. Chains shall he break, for the slave is our brother, and in his name all oppression shall cease. Sweet hymns of joy in grateful chorus raise we, let all within us praise his holy name.
Who
I feel like we need
thi-
to give him a standing ovation.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
So we played a lot of music. So tell us about what this third verse means. Father
It's
Kris.
I mean, I think that one of the coolest things is it became a kind of Christmas anthem for the northeastern United States back in the 1850s, because the third verse very clearly supports the abolitionist movement. And the composer, the actually the writer of the English version of this hymn was I think he was a Unitarian minister, and was very much against slavery. And so you wouldn't have found that song being sung in the South, but now it's sort of an anthem at every shopping mall in Alabama. It's wonderful that here's this fantastic song that's been re-recorded by every pop artist known. And that third verse is very much about liberating the captive. Back then, that was an actual liberation of human beings who were slaves. I would argue that today we can still take a similar kind of meaning out of the text, because many of us, whoever your political affiliation has been, perhaps you've been held captive by this belief system, by what people are telling you. You have to believe this and you have to believe, and suddenly you can be set free. That the message of Christmas is to not allow any ideology that's against Christ, against the principal teachings of Jesus himself. Don't allow any secular power to sway you from pursuing the peace and liberation that comes in Jesus Christ. Let the chains be broken in today's society, that we might all march and follow a peaceful, loving Jesus Christ. To me, it's a fantastic hymn. And I think when this is over, I'm going to go put it on my Alexa and I'm going to play it loud.
Well, and I love what you're saying, Father, because it's such a remarkable challenge to us all to take a step back and say, wait, who are we being led by? And for what purpose? And who do we answer to? And really taking a step and asking ourselves some hard questions and recentering ourselves in our faith and in Christ and what he actually stood for and what he teaches us. It's a phenomenal
Absolutely.
moment.
And not to talk too much, but my day job is working in a hospital with very, very sick people. And I think what's really intriguing is, be they Republican or Democrat or independent or whatever, when you're really sick and you're dying and you're hurting and you strip it all away, if you play one of these hymns, it means a very different thing to that person.
Sure does.
Because they're not in the trappings of modern culture and society. Their Facebook feed is not influencing the way they hear the message of hope, which comes in the gospel. So I just think, I wish we could all kind of capture that stripped away kind of vulnerability and then re-enter Christmas.
You've seen them in their hospital gowns, which is the modern day equivalent of swaddling clothes. It just takes us right down to our humanity. And Father Kris Kramer, we could not be more thankful for your time and for really helping us, appreciate the season. Thank you again for being with us.
This has been great. Let's do it again.
We'd love that. We will be back to wrap up the show in just a bit. You're up north. To the Up North podcast. I'm Pat Kreitlow along with Kirk Bangstead and Sarah Yakub. Thanks so much, Kirk, for making me feel guilty. We've listened to all this beautiful music, and I have to sit here and admit that my favorite Christmas album is still 1977's John Denver and the Muppets, A Christmas Together. And it's going to be Muppet music after this, but I'm thankful for this hour. And Sarah, really, it got us talking during the breaks as well, about what we should be taking away from this.
We're so blessed to be able to take this time to listen to this beautiful music with powerful messaging, but it sort of brings this question to mind that's been weighing on me lately, which is, who is it withstanding to have these conversations when our walk doesn't match our talk? Is it a friend? Is it our spouse, our coworker, our boss, our neighbor? Who is it in our lives? A stranger? Who is it that we give permission to say, really, your actions don't match your words, or what's going on here? And who holds us accountable? And, are we holding ourselves accountable? Every time I see one of those trucks with, profanity and some, whether it's Biden or someone else who's in the crosshairs of hate at the moment, and then I see a cross or some symbol of faith, I'm going, how do you put the two together? So much hate with self-identifying in your faith. And so that's the question I'm sort of left with today, of how do we bridge that gap?
Yeah. And to me, it's it's always been music for me, and that's why I did this or want to do this show tonight. I'm as bad as anybody. I get it. I'm a Facebook warrior too, and if I get riled up, I start teasing people. I start being sarcastic, and as soon as I listen to Oh Holy Night, I just start crying, and I realize that those are the greater angels. This music means something to me, so that's how I self-regulate. And I don't know. What about you, Pat?
I'm very fortunate. I've moved around a bit over the years as we've gone through different phases of my wife's career and mine. And every so often we find, just amazing people in our lives. And that includes pastors over the years as well. And I feel very fortunate to have found one that we also consider a good friend. And I know that, most people are not that fortunate, and or they don't have a spouse, again, the way that I do, that I have somebody who you can talk to about these things. And no matter how much we get worked up, she's always reminding me, to look for the good ones, that the good ones are out there. And I was talking to somebody by email today who's going through a particularly rough patch, and reminding them that we just have to go to the next good thing. And sometimes that feels like that path is very long, but the next good thing is lurking out there, and we need hours like this to do that. So in the minute or so that we have left, I just wanted to find out real quick, Sarah, are you going away? Are you having an old-fashioned family Christmas? You doing the Griswolds? What are you doing?
We are heading out to California between Christmas and New Year's, and I had a little bit of a crisis because I don't know how to dress for 40 to 50 degree weather anymore. And my mom laughed and said, "You grew up here." And I said, "Well, much has changed." So that's us. How about you all? What are you up to?
Kirk, what about you?
Well,
you're traveling next month, so you probably are taking it easy till then, right? So
I'm going to Costa Rica because COVID's crazy in Wisconsin, and this is where I go to relax and get healthy and surf.
Yeah, well, I hope the both of you enjoy the season so much. I don't want to forget before we go to thank our hosts at News Talk 92.7, home of the Devil Radio app, where you can listen to the show on demand on the weekends. Catch us on our website, upnorthpodcast.com. Watch us on YouTube or on the Facebook page of the Minocqua Brewing Company. And you can catch my work over at upnorthnewswi.com. Again, don't forget the WI on that. So with that, it's time for us to go. Thanks to our guest, Pastor Kris Kramer. Thank you for joining us at the cabin. We're taking next week off. We'll see you January 5th. Merry Christmas, you guys.
Merry Christmas.